Hello and welcome to an autumnal millinery video. My name is Ilona, I'm a milliner based in London, and today I'm going to go through my UFOs. UFO stands for unfinished objects, and as you can see I have very many of them. I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to talk about an array of different millinery techniques. These techniques include hat fastenings, decorative hat pins, velvet coverings, using blocks in creative ways, and making your own feather and berry sprays, as well as various other hat trimmings. Just remember, these are my preferred methods. There is no right or wrong way, just whatever works for you. Let's gather the materials and get started. Hat number 1 is my Draped Delight design. It's a calo half hat covered in draped velvet with velvet leaves and plastic roses. I've already covered the buckram base with the draped velvet, so I just need to line it, bind the edge, trim it, and put in a fastening. The lining is easy. I've blocked some acetate and stiffened it with diluted PVA. I've also already sewn the label to the lining. To sew the lining, I'm using stab stitches. Then some fastenings. I'm using my favourite crisp veiling ribbon. You can put bobby pins through it and the hat stays where it is put. I like to tuck these ribbons under the binding, which is why I'm sewing them in now. Next, the binding. I'm putting the join at the side as it will be disguised by the bulk from the drape. If I put it onto the centre, it will be obvious that it is there. First, I'm sewing on the top part. Then flipping over, tucking under, and sewing the bottom. I'm taking care not to pull my thread too tight as it can leave marks on the velvet. For the trim, I'm first going to glue my plastic flowers onto some felt bases. I could glue them straight onto the hat, but I don't like the idea of a hat that is permanently trimmed. After all, what if the wearer would like a different type of flower a few years after wearing it like this? So gluing onto the felt allows these flowers to be removable if needed. I've also coloured the edges of the felt so that it's the same colour as the velvet to help disguise them. I need to make some velvet leaves. There is a video coming in December on how to use flower tools to make velvet leaves, so I'll leave the explanation to then. Before sewing the trims, I'll add my comb, the edge of which I've bound in a bias piece of velvet. This makes it much easier to sew. Time to sew on all the trims, and whoops, the flowers fell off. I used UFO glue, which isn't my favourite. I prefer to use E6000, which I've run out of. I'm going to have to peel all the flowers off, sew on the felt pads, and then superglue the flowers back on. Next time, I think I'll sew the felt pads and leaves on before the lining. That way it will be much easier for me to stitch everything on without worrying about hiding my stitches inside the lining. And here's the finished hat. The Draped Delight model is available to purchase as a made-to-order hat on my website. It's available in a variety of colours, including white for a bridal version. Hat number 2 is my autumn aura model. This one is based on a vintage hat I saw online. I know it looks finished, but I didn't attach the right number of leaves onto the front bit, so I need to take some of it apart, attach 4 more leaves, and then put it back together. First, I'm going to unpick the thread holding on the veiling. Then I'm going to take off the bias strip that was covering the wire. Next, I'm attaching the extra leaves, making sure everything is spaced out evenly. To put it back together, I'm going to attach the veiling first so that I can hide its join to the wire under the bias strip, which I'm putting back next. Next time I make this, I'm going to make this binding as a double folded bias binding rather than a strip of single folded bias. As you can see, the edges are looking a bit fluffy on this version. These velvet leaves are made in the same way as the ones for the Drape Delight. There we go. I think it looks much better with the fuller wreath of leaves. I want to make this style of hat to match all the seasons. Green holly for the winter, something pastel coloured for the spring, and a light salad green with fruits and berries for the summer. I intend to make a video on how to make velvet holly leaves, not only for hats but also as seasonal home decor. You might recognise hat number 3 from my turbans and bias pleats video. I've linked to that video in the top right, so that you can watch it as a reminder of how I made these pleats. After finishing that video, I decided this hat needed a little bit of refinement by adding more feathers. Let me show you how I make a feather spray. I'm using white hackle feathers. Take a piece of wire, any wire will do. Sort your feathers into bunches of about 5. Then add a few to the top of your wire using a double-threaded needle and wrapping the thread tightly around the bunch. Keep adding small bunches of feathers, working your way down the wire until you are happy with the fullness. Tie the thread off and your feather spray is ready. Obviously, your kitten will want to help with the feathers, so make sure you involve them. To finish this hat, I want to use this pleated knot to cover the feather bases and then sew on the lining and the fastening. Hat number 4 is similar to my Acorns Abound design. It needs unblocking and wiring. I want to try a new order of operations for this hat. I've already done my wire join, so all I've got to do is put it in. I'm then going to pin my curved Petersham at the same time and also pin in the crisp veiling ribbon, which will help secure the hat to the head. I'm calling this the all-in-one method. I'm going to sew the ribbon, wire and the felt fold over all in one pass. To do this, use your thumb to hold the felt fold over down. Insert the needle diagonally through the right side of the felt hat. Travel along the tiniest space possible on the Petersham ribbon, but this time put the needle in at a straight angle. To repeat, reinsert the needle through the same spot it just came out of, but at a diagonal. What do you think of this method? Will you try it? Let me know in the comments below. Now for the label and the comb, which I've already bound in velvet. Then I need to make the berry spray. I've selected a few modern and vintage berries from my collection to play with. Here's where the nail polish comes in. I might want to paint some of the modern red berries to make them look even more delicious. To design the berry spray, I like to bounce off commercially available sprays such as this one. The other thing to think about is how many elements the spray should have. As usual, I'm referring to the Fibonacci sequence and aiming for 8 to 13 berries. Once I've selected my berries, I've separated them into Fibonacci number groups, and now I can start the assembly. I've got bits of wire and florist tape ready, which I'm also going to use as part of the spray. I'm curling one of these wires by wrapping it around a pen. To put together the spray, I've bound the largest berry to a stronger piece of wire. Then I'm adding in all the other berries in a pleasing way. I'm using the florist tape to hold everything together, but you could use a needle and thread. As a finishing touch, I'm going to paint some of the modern small red berries with dark nail polish to give them some depth. This makes them look juicier and more like the vintage ones. I'm dabbing on the nail polish with a sponge applicator. A foundation sponge will work well too. Incidentally, this is the same method as when painting gradient nail art. Once the polish is dry, I'm adding a glossy top coat to give it extra shine. All done. I think this one is rather pretty. If you are enjoying this video, please consider liking, subscribing and sharing. This really helps me grow and reach a larger audience. I'm getting really close to reaching 1,000 subscribers now, and if you can help me get even closer, I would really appreciate that. Hat number 5 was going to be all about using blocks in creative ways, but as I was working on executing the design, I changed my mind. My original idea was to combine several of these felt headbands blocked on this one block into one hat. But when I placed them all together, the hat ended up looking very bulbous. Let's see how I got on with my other design idea. Once I'd wired the bandeau shape, I decided to add some texture to the felt by pulling contrasting coloured veiling over it. as always, after this, the ribbon goes in. Now for the trim. I already have these large silk organza roses. I've got a video on how I made these, which I'll link to in the top right. I'm going to cover the stem using waxed florist tape. And then curl the end around a paintbrush. I'll just quickly do this to the second one, and it's time to stitch the roses on. The best type of fastening for these kind of bandeau hats is a hat elastic. I'm using one with prongs and inserting it with an awl. Hat number 6 is also a design that I'm still working on. I'm not sure exactly how I want to trim it yet, but I've got enough felt offcuts to make a bow, so this is probably what I will end up doing. I need to take it off the block and wire it. This halo shape is made using offcuts from a brim. I stitched 2/3 of the brim together on my sewing machine and then blocked it. As I don't have enough felt for a fold over, I'll have to place the wire at the very edge and cover it with a fold over Petersham ribbon. I've marked my cutting line following the edges of the block using soap. However, on the front, I've cut off a little bit extra. This is my little trick for making this type of hat sit better on the head. I think it gives a more pleasing line. As for the ribbon, I think it's easier to sew it on around the edges of this shape in sections. So I've curved and pressed 2 lengths for the front and back. I've also just pressed without curving 2 smaller pieces for the sides. Once I've sewn on the bow and put in an elastic fastening, this hat is ready. I'm naming this model Bright and Beautiful. You can purchase it made to order from my website. Hat number 7 is easy. This is my bumper berry design, which you might remember from this video. I need to bind the edge with Petersham ribbon and then insert the decorative hat pins. As I'm working with white, I'm washing my hands every 30 minutes, just like the embroiderers of the Duchess of Cambridge's wedding veil did. You might not realise it, but fingers get sweaty very quickly, and that sweat can leave marks on white pieces. I get a lot of questions from you all about this hat model. A lot of people have requested a video on how to make this hat. I always reply saying that there is nothing to show you, it's just all in the shape of the block. If you'd like a hat like this, find this kind of hat block. Or you could just buy the bumper berry model from my website. I've found that feather pom-poms are best attached with a short hat pin, as it's the only way to get them to stand upright in a pleasing way. This also makes them removable, so you can order other colours of feather pom-poms for the same hat, or even a completely different trim, as long as it's also on a hat pin. Wow, this has been such an intense video for me to make. A whole 7 hats in one place. If you've enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you sharing it with all your millinery friends. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.